So, yeah, we just read the Grimm brothers story, Iron John. You want to give a summary and then we'll talk about it?
Mhm. Yeah, so there's a king with a vast forest near his palace, and he can find like all sorts of animals in there. So one day he sends a hunter to get him a deer, and he sends the hunter, and that hunter doesn't come back. So on the second day, he then sends two hunters and their dogs, and they both go, and neither they or the dogs never come back. So now there's three missing hunters and dogs. And after that, he deems the forest too dangerous and it goes unvisited for a while. No one goes into the forest and he seems to forbid it.
Yeah, for years.
Mhm. So one day, an unknown hunter comes and presents himself to the court, and he tells the king that he has no fear of the forest and that he'll go in there and find out what made all the hunters and the dogs go missing. And the king forbids it, but the hunter says that, yeah, he has no fear and that he's going to go anyways. So that hunter goes with his dog into the forest, and they reach a lake, and when his dog gets near the lake, a long, skinny hand comes out and drags his dog into the water. So after seeing that, the hunter he orders two other men to like grab buckets, and they drain the lake. And once they drain the lake enough, they see that there's this very long, skinny person with long hair.
And like
Um,
rust
mhm.
colored
Oh,
person
colored skin. So they tie him up and they bring him before the king. And the king has him imprisoned in a cage
in the
with
court.
in the court with the queen holding the key. Uh, so yeah, time passes, and one day like the little prince he's out playing and he loses a ball. It actually goes into the cage. So he goes up to the cage, and uh I think the old man, I don't know if he's known as Iron John at this point, but basically Iron
Yeah, not
John
yet.
told, not yet, but the little prince asks for the ball back, and the man says that he'll give him the ball if he unlocks the cage, and the little prince refuses and says that the king has forbidden it, so he walks away.
By the way, the prince is 8 years old.
Mhm. And then the prince comes back a second day and he asks for the ball again. And the man tells him that only if he unlocks the cage will he get the ball back. And the prince refuses. And then on the third day, the prince asks for the ball again.
By the way, the
And
king
it's,
has gone hunting now on
yeah, and
this
it's
third
the
day.
same thing. Um, the boy refuses, but then like the man knows that the queen has hidden it under his pillow. So he tells the prince that if he really wants the ball back, to go get the key under the queen's pillow and to free him, and then he can get his ball back. Um, so the prince is impatient at this point to get the ball back, so he actually does go and find the key under the queen's pillow, and he unlocks the door.
And he pinched
And
his
when,
finger when he did so.
hmm, yeah,
He
and he
pinched
pinched the
his
finger.
finger.
And after that, like the old man picks him up and tells him that he will not see his family for a long time, but that he can give him a comfortable life with all the riches of the world, if he
Well,
comes with him.
kind of like the man had hurried away actually, and the boy
Yeah.
had like called after him saying,
Mm.
"I'm gonna be whipped." And then the man took him
Mm.
onto his shoulder.
Yeah. Yeah, so he puts the prince onto his shoulder and tells him that yeah, he'll live a comfortable life with riches, as long as he can stay by the a well and watch over it and make sure that nothing goes into the water. So yeah, the boys at the well after they go into the forest, and he looks into the well and sees there's like golden fish and other like golden animals that he sees
Gold snakes and fish.
periodically. Um, so yeah, the I think at this point the man tells him he's Iron John, or
Mm.
I think, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it's about, yeah.
Um, so yeah, like the first day, the boy is watching over the well, and he hurts his finger at some point, and he dips it into the water. And when that happens, one of the tip of one of his fingers becomes like golden. Um, so Iron John would like come by to see him every day to make sure that he didn't allow anything in the water. So
Yeah, every
Iron
evening.
John comes and he's hiding his finger behind his back, and he tells them to show him the finger because he already knows something has happened. So the prince shows him the finger, and Iron John says that yeah, that he shouldn't have done that, but since it's the first time, he'll let it go as long as he keeps overseeing the well and making sure nothing happens again. So he leaves, and on the second day, the boy he tries to be careful, but at some point he rubs his head, and a strand of his hair falls into the water, and that turns golden. So he tries to take it out quickly, but it's already turned gold. And Iron John comes back because he knows something happened, and he finds out about the strand of hair, and he tells him that the prince, that he has the last chance, and if something happens again, he can't live with him in the forest anymore. Um, so the boy agrees. But on the third day, he gets bored and kind of tries to look at his reflection intently in the well. And he keeps getting closer and closer. And eventually that causes his hair to fall down, his whole entire hair to fall down into the water. So he panics and takes his hair out, but it's too late. Like his entire head of hair has become gold now. Um, and he tries to like tie it up or hide it in some way, but Iron
with
John
with his pocket
comes back,
handkerchief.
and yeah, he knows what happened. Like he sees the hair and he tells him that he's broken the agreement, and that because of that he can't live with him in the forest anymore, and that he will know a life of poverty. Um, but he says that because he has a good heart, though, that if there ever comes a day he needs help, he can call upon his name in the forest and he'll immediately come to help him. So the
Yeah,
boy has to leave.
he has to go to the forest and cry, Iron John, and then I will
Mhm.
come and help you.
So the boy leaves, and he goes through many beaten paths, and eventually he reaches a city and he tries to find work, but he can't because he has no skills. Um, and eventually in the city, he reaches a palace, and there he asks if there's any way he can make a living with them. And they don't have anything in mind, but they take him in out of pity. And
And it says they like him.
yeah. So his first job is as a kitchen boy, so he's kind of in charge of, I think, chopping wood and occasionally bringing meals to the royalty when no
Raking
one
the
else is
cinders.
available. So the prince, yeah, one day he goes to serve a meal to the king, and I think the king notices he's wearing a cap, and he tells him that it's not appropriate and that he should take his cap off before the king. And the prince replies that he has a sore on his head and that's he can't remove his cap. So the king kind of chides the cook in the kitchen, tells him like why has he brought a boy with such a thing condition into the service. So eventually the cook kind of goes to the the gardener, and exchanges his boy with the prince so that he can like work outside and not have to interact um, with the royalty that much. So so yeah, now the prince is working as a gardening boy, and one day he's out uh working, and it's a really hot day, so he takes his cap off, and his shiny hair kind of reflects light, and the reflection goes into the princess's window, and she's astounded by the reflection, immediately goes to investigate, and in this distance she can see the gardening boy with his shiny hair. Um, so she immediately orders that he bring her wild like flowers. So he picks wildflowers, and eventually the gardener stops him and tells him why would he pick such wildflowers for the princess, and that he should be looking for rare type flowers. But
The prettiest
the
and the
prince,
rarest.
Mhm. But the prince responds that the wildflowers have the best scent and that the princess will like those the most. So he takes her the wildflowers, and she immediately starts to like interrogate him about the cap, or and asks him if he has golden hair,
Well,
which he denies. But
and also
she,
take your cap off. It's not seemly to keep it on in my
yeah,
presence.
yeah. So she once again brings up the court etiquette, like he shouldn't be wearing it. So I think eventually she snatches it off and sees his golden hair, and she gives him like golden coins um, to take with him. But he tells her that he doesn't need them,
Well, he
or
just doesn't
or
care for them.
yeah, he doesn't
He
care for
didn't
them,
tell her
and
that.
he gives the coins back to the gardener for his children to play with. Um, and then on the second day, like the princess demands to see him again. And again, she wants to see his hair, which I think he does show her. And like, well, he's kind of forced to because of her demands. And she gives him coin again, but he again gives it to the gardener. Um, and then I think there's a third instance of the same thing happening. Um,
And she could not,
and
this time she could not get his cap away from him, and he would not have
yeah,
her money.
yeah. So he just outright refuses this time everything. So, um,
And then the
so
country was
there's that.
overrun with war not long after.
Yeah. So yeah, now the country's overrun with war, and the king sends prepares for battle, and the prince wants to go, but all the young men in the palace or wherever they have taken like the best horses, and they leave him like a lame horse with like a messed up leg, and she's like an old, and they leave it to him, and they're kind of mocking him about about him going to battle. So
And and by the way, the enemy is much greater than the
mhm.
king's forces.
So the prince now decides it's time to go into the forest and call upon Iron John. So he goes into the forest and shouts his name 3 times, and Iron John immediately appears, and he asks the prince how he could help him. And the prince replies that he would like one of the best battle horses. And Iron John says, I'll give you that and more than you ask for. Um, and he immediately sends like those people that take care of horses, like a Barnes, uh,
Stable boy.
stable boy, and the stable boy has this wild, strong horse, and behind them are like an army of knights, like in armor, and the prince takes the horse and goes off into battle, and by the time he arrives, the king's forces have fallen, and it's not looking good for the king, but with the prince's horse and his own little army, they defeat the enemy. So yeah, after that,
Well, they
um,
and they follow the enemy as the enemy
yeah,
retreats and cut them all down.
yeah. And immediately after the battle, the prince goes back into the forest and calls upon Iron John again. And he asks Iron John to give him back his lame horse. And so he exchanges the strong battle horse, and the army kind of goes back into the forest with Iron John. And he goes back to the palace where he's kind of mocked again by the other young men there, and he asks him if he was asleep in a bush in the meantime while the battle was happening. Um, and he kind of tells them that he actually did something important, but that just makes them laugh more, and they don't take him seriously. Um,
And also the
so
king, when he comes
yeah,
back from the war, the
hmm
daughter wants to congratulate him, but he gives the
hmm
credit to the mysterious
yeah,
troops.
yeah. So
And then
that
she asks
happens.
about the gardener where his boy was, but he just smiled and then said what you
hmm
just said about the gardener boy being mocked and mocked.
hmm Yeah, so that happened. And the king wants to find out who the knight was. Um, so he throws like a banquet for 3 days, kind of inviting, I guess, all the knights or whatever. Um, so on and one of the prizes they can get will be like a golden apple. Um,
That's right, thrown
so
by the daughter.
yeah, yeah. So on the first day, of the banquet, the prince goes back into the forest and he calls upon Iron John again. And Iron John tells him that he'll give him a red suit of armor and horse to go into I think it was a horse, or not, if I'm not mistaken, but to go into the banquet. So he shows up to the banquet in a red suit of armor, and
And a
yeah,
spirited chestnut horse.
oh yes, yeah, and he doesn't like reveal his identity, but he's able to catch the golden apple, and he immediately leaves the banquet, um, and kind of disappears mysteriously. Um, and then on the second day, he shows up in a he he calls upon Iron John again, and this time Iron John gives him a white suit of armor
And
and
a white
maybe a
horse.
horse too. Yeah, white horse. So he shows up again, and he catches the golden apple, and he escapes again. And I think this time the king says that if on the third day he escapes again, that his men could should give chase and cut him down if they need to. Um, so on
Yeah,
the
and kill
third
him.
day,
Yeah, stab him and
yeah,
everything.
on the third day he calls upon Iron John again, and Iron John gives him a black suit of armor. And he once again goes into the banquet and catches the apple, but this time the king's men chase him and wound him.
In the leg.
But yeah, in the leg, but he's, I think, still able to escape, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, and after that, uh, I think the king's daughter already has suspicions on who it is. Um, and
Yeah, she asked the
uh,
gardener about his boy.
yeah, she asks Gardner, and he gives like I forgot what answer he gives, but
He is
that
at
he was
work in the garden.
work. Hmm
The queer creature has been at the festival too, and only came home yesterday evening.
Yeah.
He has likewise shown my children 3 golden apples which he has won.
hmm So she finds that tidbit out from the gardener, and I think she arranges, I think she calls upon him
No, the king
for
summons
king or the
him
king.
into his presence, and he came and
Oh
again
yeah.
had his little cap on his head.
Yeah, and then I think the king asked him if he was the knight in the all those days in the banquet and at
That's
the
right.
battle, and
Also,
Iron
the
John tells him
also
that
the
he
king's daughter like snatched the cap off his
yeah,
head.
yeah, he tells him that he was, and his hair is reeled after the daughter snatches the cap, and he offers to show him the wound too that he got when he was chased. Um, and at this, the king is astounded and asks him like how he could, what he can do to repay him. And the prince says um, that he can give him his daughter in marriage. And the king also comments that he surely can't be just an ordinary garden boy, and he reveals his identity as the son of a king, too.
And that
Um,
also he has gold. And
yeah.
uh, my father is a mighty king, and gold have I in plenty, as great as I require.
Mhm. So like a wedding is arranged and the prince marries the princess, and the prince's parents are able to come to the wedding after they had given up on ever finding him after he disappeared into the forest. And towards the end of the wedding, another king shows up last minute, and he reveals himself to be Iron John and says that he was placed under a curse to be like a forest creature, but that the prince had helped him break that, and that now like all his treasure and riches will be his. And yeah, and that's where it ends.
That's right. Yeah, before he had left the forest as a boy, uh and Iron John had told him when he was saying that he could help him that he has more gold than anybody in the world, more gold and riches than anybody in the world. And then that echoes what the boy says when he finally reveals who he is, that he has great wealth. And, and gold have I in plenty, as great as I require. So, what did you think of this story?
Well, I liked the story. It was different, like you said. Um,
Longer
mm,
than most of the ones that we read.
yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
has is about growing up.
Hmm.
I like the image of the enchanted or dark forest that's like no everyone's afraid to go in for years, you
Hmm.
know. It's sort
Yeah,
of pall settles over everything.
yeah. And it kind of made me think of those coming to age rituals where like some tribes are like have young pe boys go out into the forest or nature like for a while, and then like they have some kind of experience there that transforms them into a man some
That's
kind of
right.
way.
That's right.
Yeah.
Including, yeah, pain, wounding, and then yeah, going out into the wider world, suffering, developing skills. You know, when he goes from becoming a cook's helper to a gardener, it mentions how he's like out there, like suffering, working hard and suffering from the weather.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of Buddhism too, with the story of Buddha, like going from like a pampered prince to then kind of going out and seeing and kind of suffering and
Yeah,
trials and stuff to
that's
come
right. Yeah,
back
you have to leave the palace
transformed.
because the palace is where all your needs are met. But your need for transformation, for growth, cannot be met when all your other needs are met.
Mhm.
And as Iron John, and after he leaves Iron John, That's like a second stage of development. And Iron John specifically says, there you will know poverty.
Mm.
But also, he is still there, like when he really needs him.
Mm.
But they also help each other. Like he eventually disenchants Iron John. What's with all the metal, with all the iron?
That's wondering too. There's like a metal, gold.
I mean, I
Um,
guess uh, if he was like a king or a knight, he could be wearing armor and armor rusts in water. But anyway, maybe it's this idea of like he's like a black hole, well, he has languished in some way, or he has had a curse put on him so that what is a curse? It is an evil mark. It is like a poison to the soul to where you cannot fulfill your purpose. And that's kind of what evil is in a lot of manifestations. It's the opposite of good. Good is about fulfilling your purpose and then being happy and celebrated because of that. Evil is the opposite of that, not fulfilling your purpose. The forest languishes. It cannot feed people. You know, people cannot go there to hunt anymore. And when this intrepid, lone, mysterious hunter that we never hear from again in the
yeah.
story goes and we discover what's been going on, yeah, there's this unnatural sort of hand coming from this deep well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when I think of metal or iron, I kind of think of something that's kind of malleable and kind of like literally forged. So, kind of what you're saying is just something unnatural happened with that king, where he was kind of molded or forced into that uh, situation of being trapped uh, in the lake as Iron John.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like a great king, but by himself. I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, the idea is yeah, you go into the unknown forest, which is near your house, so it's never far away from your soul, from your life, the unknown, the mysterious. And there you encounter a deep well, uh, which represents some kind of mysterious kind of energy or life force or something, but something is twisted about it, something's wrong, and something you need somebody to suffer, to sacrifice in and maybe with knowledge or something like that to right the wrong from before and to bring liveliness, to bring life, to bring happiness and flow again to the kingdom. Yeah. Yeah, and we can talk about the specifics of the story. So after the hunter drains that swamp sort of with the two other hunters and they take out the Iron John who has who is still unnamed at this point. He's called the Wild Man and he has hair down to his knees and he's rust colored. And they take him and put him in the cage in the courtyard. And yeah, the only for 3 days when the boy loses his ball in the cage, it's kind of like there's an attraction there. Like I think that's a symbol of a sign of his sort of interest. But he's also scared. He's not going to just go up and try to necessarily approach the wild man directly. But yeah, he loses his ball there. And on the third day, when the king is away, that's when he's more vulnerable and he is sort of told to he's not tricked, is he? He's just told to like look under his mother's pillow for the key to if he wants his ball back. But that's when he's given a little bit of knowledge about where the key is. What do you think is the significance of the mother having the key?
Mm.
I mean, there's something to that, right? But I can't quite tell what that is.
I don't know, like maybe the mom's a gatekeeper in some kind of ways. Uh,
Yeah.
um, it's
In,
kind of
in a
like,
way, it's like your mom is not willing to let a boy completely grow up.
yeah,
Like he has to like kind of do something against her sort of will.
yeah, like he needed to go through his mother to kind of become free to grow up because naturally, of course, a mom is more concerned with safety and keeping the child close by.
That's right. Yeah.
Um,
And then, yeah,
so
when he
yeah.
opens the cage, he pinches his finger, which has implications later on in the story. And the gate is hard to open. It's a very strong gate. You need really strong bars to like keep this wild man in there. I mean, I guess before his the wild man was trapped under the well, right? Wasn't that like a prison part of his enchantment? And then the first hunter is able to partially free him, but not, but only, 10-20% or something, not completely. He's still trapped in his bad form, although he's not, yeah, at the bottom of a well, like sucking everything in with him. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting that you didn't know if the Iron Man, the Wild Man, at this point in the story was bad or not. But the boy like calls after him and says, "I'm gonna be whipped," and like so he kind of takes him with him, like to help him out, or maybe it's like he has seen that the boy has something that like uh makes him willing to take the boy with him. But then, yeah, he immediately has a task for the boy. He has more purpose now than presumably than like sitting at the bottom of a well and like taking everything in that comes into the forest into it with him and presumably killing it. And now the boy has a task, yeah. But it's about keeping the purity of something. And if but of course his little curiosity or his little like inability to stand the pain in his finger or something leads him to pollute the well in some way, and he gets three chances. But of course, on the third chance, he's enchanted by his own reflection. But he pollutes the well, but then it like makes his hair bright golden colored. So you mentioned the growing up rituals. I mean, it's kind of like that where I believe the wound is something, yes, it literally changes you, right? Because you now have a wound on your body. But it's this idea that it is a strength for you too now. You have been touched by death, or you have been touched by something much deeper than what you have encountered so far, which is very far away from, mother's bedroom, from like the safety and peace of the palace. What do you think of this golden pond that he was supposed to protect that had
Mm.
golden fishes and snakes in it? Could be Christian iconography, snake
Yeah,
and
that's what
fish.
I kind of thought of. Maybe again, maybe there was some kind of a snake, which always obviously makes me think of the whole Adam and Eve story, and maybe there was some kind of knowledge in that kind of well,
Right. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was
It's
hidden.
it's like it's
Yeah,
like the two trees. You're supposed to protect them. You cannot touch of them. Yeah, you are the guardian.
yeah. And then the fish.
But then when they partake of the forbidden thing, it does lead to them being kicked out and experiencing much hardship, but also sort of leading to their ultimate fate.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, that's what I thought. Then with the fish, I thought of that famous thing Jesus says in the Bible where you give a man a fish and he could live for a day, but if you teach him how to, he can like take care of himself
Does
forever. So kind
Jesus
of,
say that? I thought that was just a saying.
or just the
I
same,
think you
but I
might be
don't remember.
conflating those. I don't know. I
But
don't think
anyways,
Jesus
if
says that. But anyway, yeah,
but
let's go with
anyways,
it.
if that saying was still around then, it kind of makes me think of like him being out in the being kind of kicked out and being kind of forced to learn how to take care of himself
That's right. That's
as
right.
part of
Yeah.
his journey.
Yeah, he has to fend for himself after that.
Mm,
He's not what can you say? He's not yet ready for that caliber of a job. He's too fidgety. He's not disciplined enough, controlled
mm.
enough.
Yeah,
What?
and maybe he
Hmm.
was kind of expelled from kind of the garden in kind of a way when he messed up that third time. So
Yeah,
maybe
exactly.
that's what this snake, yeah,
Exactly.
symbolized.
Yeah, and you can even speculate further that his ultimate downfall was vanity. There may be something even an echo there of the myth of Narcissus there. Narcissus who fell in love with his reflection
Mhm.
in a pool of water.
Okay, and then we can maybe kind of understand why now when he's later on in the palace, he's hiding his hair a lot because maybe he kind of learned from that. Yeah,
Learn, what do you mean?
like learned was he was kind of discouraged from vanity after that whole experience with the well
Mm.
too.
You think he's vain about his golden head of hair?
No, I don't think he is, but maybe if you're bringing up there may if you maybe if there was like some vanity going on with him kind of looking at the well all the time at his reflection, maybe he kind of learned from that. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I think it's something else, but yeah. What is that? Ashamedness, or he's cautious. He knows it sets him apart. I mean, he is set apart. He is a king's son, and he has had this privileged kind of experience and initiation, but he has to hide it. A little bit like the in the story of the donkey, where the donkey skin kind of the donkey suit like hides who he really is for a while when he is amongst the courtiers until he's ready to take the mantle of the throne. But anyway, yeah, there is a lot there where he's always hiding his head, and the little girl's trying to snatch it off. The king's daughter's trying to snatch it off, and very curious, and that's what initially gets her attention. But yeah, as I mentioned to you when we were talking before the podcast, yeah, he has to pay his dues. He has to like take the ridicule. He has to be mocked by the people who when he had saved the king's the forces of the kingdom, he has to be mocked afterwards by the others who, chide him for supposedly having been sleeping under a shrub. They ridiculed him more. Yeah. What else do you think about this story?
Mm. Oh, when he was changing his armor day by day, I just thought of the four horsemen of the apocalypse because
Mm,
like each color I think aligns with one from what I recall. Yeah.
really? Wow.
Yeah. So I think the first day was red and I think that color represents the like horsemen of war.
Huh.
Like so I maybe it's a reference to like his participating in the war with
Uh-huh.
the other kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the next day it's white.
Mm-hmm.
I think that one is like conquering or something.
Mm.
Like I think that's what it represents.
Mm.
Um, and then like black represents famine.
Whoa.
Um, so yeah, I thought maybe like it could refer to like different parts of the story, like each day. Um, yeah, so that's what I was thinking of when I was describing those like changes in armor.
Mm.
Um, and he is given a horse every day, so I thought it seems kind of maybe directly
Mm-hmm.
inspired by that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he is a knight,
Yeah.
though, after all. I mean, that you're not going to be walking around in that heavy armor probably for a real long time.
Yeah, so yeah, that's what I was thinking of for a
Mm.
bit.
Yeah. What do you think when earlier in the story when after the king's daughter sees the reflection of his hair in her room when he's down the garden, uh, and by the way, Garden of Eden, if you want to think of that that commonality, but he picks her flowers and then he is met by the gardener when he's ascending the stairs. The gardener says, "How can you take the king's daughter a garland of such common flowers? Go quickly and get another and seek out the prettiest and rarest." And the boy says, "Oh no, the wild ones have more scent and will please her better." So already he knows more, yeah, than his master, sort of. So, but why do you think he brings the wild? Why does she like the wild ones better? I think that's kind of a key to this story, or at least like that's what I've thought before.
Mhm.
There's a lot of like castle and civilization on the one hand, and wildness and nature on the other in this story.
You know, like I thought I was kind of actually talking about himself in a way, or not like talking about himself, but maybe just kind of hinting at what the princess likes in a man.
Mm.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
like
They
maybe
are
someone that's
like a representation of
yeah,
himself. He's yeah,
yeah. So
sort of.
yeah, like a man has to have a good balance between both, and like maybe a man that's too sheltered and kind of soft by living in the castle or somewhere highly civilized won't have the kind of develop the masculine attributes of like kind of knowing about the outside world and
That's right.
kind of developing his kind of strengths and masculinity as a man to be also
That's
be
right.
able to protect from the outside and have knowledge of it. So
Yeah, that's right.
uh,
Yeah, the gardener wants him to bring the prettiest and the rarest flowers. So that's like a representation of what the the king's daughter supposedly is. But by bringing her the wild flowers with the scent, it's more like he's bringing a representation of himself. He's showing what she's already got a hint of it, a big hint of it with his hair, and which may represent secret knowledge or, yeah, privileged beginnings or, something special sort of genetically. And now, yeah, he's showing that yeah, he can bring the fecundity and diversity of things that show a like a potential, like multifarious potential from nature that he has. And then yeah, when he brings his gift, like she wants to see his hair, he won't really show it, but she snatches off his cap. She'll she sees it, but he doesn't really stay long or anything. He's not
Yeah.
showing off. He's not debonair. He's not
Mm,
using the language of the Don Juan or anything. And when she offers him the coins, he kind of disdains them. He
mm,
just takes them and tells the gardener, these are playthings for you, for your children.
mm,
And then on the third day, he doesn't even. Do you remember that? Like yeah, he would not even have her money. On the third
mm,
day, things went just the same. She could not get his cap away from him, and he would not have her money. So he gets more sort of integrity about who he is and
mm,
who he isn't. The who he
mm,
isn't part is like a person who can be bought, who can be
mm,
sort of not trifled with, but what's the idea?
mm.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's not her little toy.
Mm,
But yeah. So after that, yeah, the country is overrun by war. As I mentioned, this story has a lot of the palace versus like nature and dark magic and all that stuff. But there's also, you mentioned the what was it, the White Knight or the
mm.
maybe the Red Knight, I
Yeah.
guess was
Red,
the war.
white, and yeah, black.
Mm.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's the war now,
Mm,
and there's the greater force than your kingdom, so you're in a real bad place. So you need help from somewhere else, from natural reserves represented maybe by the Iron John and the forest, and from allies, which is also the boy. He's from another kingdom, and sort of maybe unexpected. Something about it being an unexpected thing. Yeah, maybe the kingdom was complacent. I mean, the even when I mean the whole story is about, yeah, him being not what others think of him and him hiding who he is
mm,
up until the very end. You know, he's like the little boy with the golden ball. Golden ball, of course, means there's something special about him. And he ends up basically the king in his kingdom, in the first part of the story, thinks he can get rid of evil just by jailing it up and not really understanding it or not really learning from it. But his son is wiser unconsciously and embraces that wild man who ends up through experience and all that stuff taking him out and giving him the greatest gift, which is not like apparent peace and safety now, but the ability to bring prosperity and peace through strength. But yeah, but the boy goes through many things and is hidden the whole time, but still maintains his integrity and ends up, yeah, defeating the enemies, even though he's not taking credit for it exactly, and he's not trying to look good. I notice also, yeah, they cut down all the enemy. They pursued the retreating enemy and cut them all down. Maybe that is symbolic of, yeah, whatever kind of evil that might befall a kingdom or a human being. You could always apply all these stories, just like maybe just like Plato's Republic. You can are they really talking about a city, or are they really talking about an individual that has different parts and interacts with like the outside? It's
mm,
you can kind of apply it to both, and it seems to kind of work for both. But yeah, maybe cutting down all of the enemy is something about, like, I don't know what the metaphor is. It's not leaving no stone unturned, but it's more like doing the job right, doing the job completely, And a lot of this book is about doing work, like working in the kitchen, working in the garden, war, and and yeah, I guess it's about doing it 100% or something like that. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah. Yeah, so what was it that freed Iron John anyway? Like, is it just that he became useful eventually and he was the point? It was almost like as if he made a deal originally, sort of like the Beast and Beauty and the Beast, where he has to do good by somebody else despite
Mm.
his repulsive appearance or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
But it
Like,
seems like at the end, the boy turned man has freed Iron John from his
mm,
evil enchantment by,
yeah, I don't know if maybe Iron John kind of, yeah, he was he was a wild man so long, and he kind of took on a father kind of figure. So maybe that kind of returned him back to like civilization in a way, kind of playing that role and that, like you said, doing something good, kind of, and freedom. But yeah, it's kind of hard for me to tell.
yeah, yeah. But there does seem to be something about the idea of evil being the opposite of good. So like when he has the evil enchantment, he's just consuming others. He makes the forest not be a place where you can help yourself at all, where people avoid, like the land grows stagnant sort of because people are afraid to go
Yeah.
into the forest, you know.
Oh yeah. And then he
And then
started giving. Yeah.
yeah, and then with the boy, he's able to start being good again. Like he's able to be productive to help someone to eventually to provide for someone else. He provides for the boy. It's like his second father. Doesn't he end up giving him his riches at the end? Yeah.
Yeah.
I am Iron John and was by enchantment a wild man, but you have set me free. All the treasures which I possess shall be your property. Yeah, it reminds me soon before this, right before the wedding, when the boy had finally revealed himself at the end. If you can perform such deeds as that, this is the king speaking, you are no gardener's boy. Tell me, who is your father? My father is a mighty king, and gold have I in plenty, as great as I require. And then soon after that they get married, and then his father and mother come and they're rejoiced, reunited. He's alive. And then Iron John comes and announces himself, and this is the very end of the story, and says, "You shall have all that I have." This reminds me of, I think, the Matthew principle, like from the Bible, where like those who have plenty will still be given more. Those who have nothing, or almost nothing, everything will be taken from them. Something like that. This boy is already rich, and now he will be given far more riches. Iron John has the most treasures of anybody in the world, which that shouldn't be taken literally, in that I think that means that it's like it's not just that his quantity of treasure is greater, but his quality of treasure is greater. Like he's able to provide these like knights out of nowhere, and this like fierce, barely able to contain the fury of horse, when the boy needs them in the war. There's something very special about him and his powers. and what he's able to provide, which is sort of priceless. And that is sort of the true property in his soul, maybe I could say, of the prince is is brought home by the fact that he disdains, he won't accept. He calls it playthings, the gold, the little trifling gold coins that the the little girl, the daughter, tries to give him. Because, his hair maybe is like his golden hair is a representation of the quality of his soul. And she's in a way trying to buy his soul.
Hmm.
And he's saying, "You are not worthy and your gold coins are nothing for this." Because yeah, again, he's you can read it in like a spiritual way, or you can read it in like a true power kind of way, where yeah, the all the gold in the world isn't gonna save your kingdom if you've got, the barbarians at the gates. If you have the barbarians at the gates, you need the power of nature and strength and virtue. You need the real guys that are really willing to and can fight them, and willing to call on whatever reserves uh, are in their depths. But yeah, you can also see that as spiritual too, which I think those are both comparable too. We often, I think, in our sort of, I don't know what you call it, late Christian kind of way, like separate the spirit and the body and virtue and strength. But those things are, I think, originally are more together. The word virtue like means strength or something. I've commented on this, as Rousseau says, and spirit also, originally just meant breath, something. So it's connected to the body. We don't have to like separate them out so much. Yeah, you have any other thoughts about this one?
So far.
Yeah, but I thought this was good. This is longer than most stories that that we read, and I don't know if it's more complex, but it seems to have more parts. But
Hmm.
yeah, I enjoyed it, especially this mysterious character of this Iron John, this wild man turned savior or second father. Is sort of like, yeah, enjoyed beholding him. Okay. Well, until next week.